What's up guys, and today I'm going to tell you how I edited this front cover. Nice. So this is the image that we're going to be talking about today. As you can see, it is a light painted image. What that means is it's multiple exposures taken from a tripod with myself walking down the side of the car holding a light to accent some of the body panels of the car. What I'll do first, before we jump straight into the editing, is you are going to need a bit of equipment to achieve an image like this. First of all, you're going to need a tripod or something solid to put your camera on. Then you're going to need a camera, obviously, and you're also going to need some sort of light source. Now this can be anything from an iPhone, it can be a work light. I have, I can't remember the name of it, but it's this sort of magic light tube that I bought from Amazon. I'll drop a link for that in the descriptions below. And another tool that will help you do all this is a remote control. This means you can activate the camera without actually having to touch the camera itself. This minimises on camera shake, and it also helps with preventing misaligned imagery. So what does light painting really look like? Well, first of all, this is one of the frames I used. I like to start by lighting the largest portion of the car, in which case this is the side of the vehicle, and so I will walk from the camera to the front of the vehicle, dragging the light behind me, and this is kind of the effect it gives. I'll do this multiple times, so it gives me options to find the nicest sort of reflections that you want. Then we move on to the rear of the car, the rim lights. So this is lighting the far side of the car, trying to find that sweet spot where the light just pulls the vehicle off of the background. A bit more tidying up around the back, some fill light from underneath the rear of the car, and so on and so forth. And then we get into lighting your background, because you obviously want to light your car, but you want to consider your background as well. Otherwise it's just going to look super disjointed and you're going to end up with a messy looking image. So what I was going for here was, you can see the light source just out of frame here. It's lighting up the side of the car, but it's also bouncing back and causing all these caustic reflections down the side. I think it's a really nice look, so that's probably one of the frames that I ended up using. Again, I just went through and did some final rim lights before redoing the side of the vehicle again. So what you want to do is, once you've made your tweaks, you don't want to go overboard in Lightroom with this. You just want to select all of your images, go up here to Photo, Edit in, and Open as layers in Photoshop. Now what this will do, it will stack all of the layers one on top of the other inside Photoshop, and from there you'll want to jump in, select all the layers that is loaded into stack here, go Edit and Auto Align Layers. Now like I said, we're using a remote to try and minimise on the misalignment of imagery, but sometimes it's unavoidable, and it's always a good idea just to make sure your images are aligned so you don't get any weirdness when painting. Now the next thing you want to do is select all your layers, change your blending mode to lighten, and this way they will all stack on top of each other, so you can actually reveal the car. Now obviously this looks super messy, and don't worry, we're not going to use all of the frames in this. You have a couple of options. You can either use a smaller amount of frames, you can use a mask to use portions of the frame that you want, but the reason why I've kept it like this at the moment is because you're probably going to want to mask out the car away from the background. This will allow you to edit the car separate to the background. Now what we'll do is I'll open up the main stack. So this is my actual PSD for the front cover shot that we showed you earlier. I've already worked on this one, but we'll go in through here. So first of all, you can see that I've masked out the car. See those marching ants? Did that quite simply, just using the pen tool. Just click and drag around the vehicle. Once you get your selection, right click and then make selection, and then you can apply that to a mask. This is the chosen background that I used. You saw that earlier in Lightroom, and what we'll just start building it up. So I made some slight adjustments to that. I then added another pass, this one, just to add a bit more feel to it. Felt the background was a bit distracting, So basically just a black layer set to darken with about 65% opacity. We just mask that area off so it's just only affecting the rear of the car. We're ignoring the car itself at the moment, this is purely just in the background. Then just add a little bit more punch, like pull the highlights up a little bit and drop the midtones and darks down a little bit so it's just a bit darker. We actually started with the back of the car, so it's the rear, then adding in the side, which we masked out because there's a slight bit of sloppiness around here, which wasn't very attractive, so just turn that off. A little bit more side, so just to fill in the bottom of the vehicle there. A light pass for the wheels, so this is actually one of the side passes, and we used it for the wheels. The roof, this is where we were doing those rim lights, so that's walking around the rear of the vehicle. That's what it looked like in entirety, but not very clean, so I just wanted it for the bit of the roof up here. One thing to note though, there's a little bit too much information in the midtones, so I did a a curves, which I then clipped, which is just holding down Alt or Option, and so disconnect this one. So yeah, just hold down Alt or Option, and it will clip it just to that layer there. So you can turn that one on and off. We used one of those more open passes for the rear of the car, obviously very messy and not very desirable at all, so we just use that to lift the bottom of the wing there. Another rim light which we used just for the top of the rear wing, not very interesting but just helps separate it from the background a little bit more. Yeah, I've got one more rear light pass here. This was just to tidy up the reflection under the SB Motorsport logo here. You can see as before there was a white reflection, not very attractive, so just help clean it up a little bit. Overall we gave the car some adjustments, pretty much the same curves as we applied on the background, just to give it that bit more punch. And then finally we completed the rest of the Westlake logo on the tyre there, because it was incomplete. One thing to note, you will be shooting a background layer, but don't throw away or don't discount the other layers that you use for the car, because sometimes there might be a nice pass in it. This is one that I used, it's called Floor Dark, which I showed you earlier, but that wasn't actually intended to be used for the background at all. It was for the car, but it added just a nice amount of fill to the foreground and the rear of the car so it doesn't plunge it into darkness. So when you're building a background, do consider some of the layers that you use for the car. There might be some interesting light in there might be nice shadows, or there might be nice textures brought out by the light. So that's pretty much it for Photoshop. We then took it back into Lightroom. Come over to the Develop tab, and we can have a little look at what we did in here. So when it wants to load, there you go. So this was as it was from Photoshop. Since then we've done a little bit of a straighten, and then we punched in some of the shadows just to lift those a little bit, punched up the whites, a bit of blue in the shadow as well, which is something I always like to do, and a bit of clarity and a bit of vibrance as well as sharpening. And that's pretty much it. I hope you like it. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Hopefully there's some good little tips for you there. Remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.